this next story has to do with the BYU Law School, the J. Reuben Clark Law School, and a guest lecturer who came and presented something to the students there. And I'm calling this kind of like a lawsuit, head versus heart. So on the left, you have head, that's the scarecrow, your brain, right? And on the right, you have heart. That's the Tin Man. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is from The Wizard of Oz. I hope you do know. Anyway, so this was a post from a third-year law student who I've been in contact with and got permission to share this. And he was there at this lecture, and it just struck him in such a way that he had to make a post about it. So his post is called, "Church is Terrified of Losing Its Young Lawyers." I bet they are. So this third-year law student says, today, former attorney and General 70 Wilford Anderson, who I believe is emeritus at this point, visited BYU Law School to give a guest lecture titled "The Nuance of Knowing." Very interesting title. The main takeaway was that at law school, you learn great critical thinking skills, and that's great for your career and all, but please do not use these with church topics. He distinguished two types of knowledge, head knowledge and heart knowledge. You can see where he's going here. There is a risk, he argued, that intelligent people are too quick to lean on their own understanding. They sometimes gasp, even use their intellectual abilities to pick apart heart knowledge, something that you know in your heart, right? Or in other words, they apply logic and evidence to spiritual topics. He then spent the last 10 minutes going on about how important attorneys are to the work of the church, to fight for religious liberty issues, and so on. He was also sure to mock those who got worked up over church history and social issues. So right there, it's head over heart. Oh, I think it's so interesting. He goes on to say the entire talk obviously had strong undertones of the church's fear of the millennials and Gen Z leaving the church. They need smart, accomplished professionals to be leaders in the church. And if that demographic starts leaving in significant numbers, it's in hot water. This is doubly true of lawyers. If the next generation of LDS attorneys apostatize, who in the world is going to run the church? And then he said this cute thing, "Thanks for reading. I should be working on an assignment, but my morbid curiosity made me throw away an hour of my life. And so I had to share." So this post was intriguing. I've seen other people talk about it. What do you guys think of this idea of head knowledge and heart knowledge? And your heart knowledge should always win out.
I think that what he's trying to do, he's trying to make a difference without a distinction, is what he's doing, to use a legal phrase to talk about his legal argument, which is really not a good legal argument. It's obvious what he's trying to do, right? What he's trying to do is saying, use your head and your critical thinking skills for the law, but leave the church out of it. Do not use your head. Do not use the critical thinking skills that you are learning to become a lawyer on your religion. Otherwise, there's going to be hell to pay. We don't want that to happen, because you're going to end up leaving the church over it. At least that's their fear. And it's probably based on the fact that it's been happening an awful lot. The idea here is that critical thinking should be able to be used across the board, not selectively. What it is, I think, is a tacit admission that using your head on the LDS church is going to lead to a lack of faith.
He said in another way, he seems to be saying there are compelling reasons to doubt.
Yes. And we don't want you stumbling on those.
That's right. Follow your heart, follow your dreams. That's it. So this particular general authority, then somebody emailed me a whole big thing about this gentleman when he was their general authority, was their stake president, and mentioned that he had been a top contributor to Prop 8, which I thought was interesting. And then right after that was made a general authority. So, there's always a backstory to people. But then I continued talking to this third-year law student, and he gave me a little more perspective about what's happening over there at the law school. And he said that religious education is really ramping up under the new dean, David Moore, who just became the dean last year. He said that under the reign of David Moore, there's an emphasis on attending devotionals. Every Tuesday, there's a devotional at BYU. This is optional. Sounds like the dean is now encouraging the students, you've got to go to the devotional. Also, the dean created a Come Follow Me group within the law school so that they can all study the Come Follow Me curriculum. And he also sends out emails that sort of reminds people of the dress standards, especially reminding the female law students about the appropriate dress for them. So in the perspective of this third-year student that I was talking to, definitely amping up the religious side of a legal education, which I thought was very interesting. And that name may sound familiar to you. The David Moore, about, I don't know, a couple months ago, there was an article in the Tribune. BYU Law School Dean contributed to Project 2025, and then later had his name removed. So that's a little controversial in its own right there, that he did make a contribution to that, and it stood his name on the rolls there while he was the dean, and then he asked to have it removed because he was associated with BYU in that contribution. So anyway, you can read more about that in the Tribune, but it's just kind of interesting to see who these players are. And then, not to be outdone, I just had to add this because I came across this just like half an hour before the show. Somebody else posted that they had been in a BYU religion class, and it was a class about learning the teachings of the prophets. And there was a section on apostasy and rebellion. And in a subheading under that, there was something called inappropriate intellectualism. And after I read this, I feel like the three of us and a lot of people that we know and associate with engage in inappropriate intellectualism. So be forewarned. So this is right out of the what the lecture said. It said, the inappropriate intellectual section of this lecture reads as follows: "To be learned is good, declared Jacob, if they hearken unto the counsel of God." 2 Nephi 9:29. When one ignores the inspired teachings of the prophets simply because those prophets lack academic credential, or because their words fly in the face of the accepted theories and views of the world, that person is in a way rebelling against the wisdom of God and relying on the arm of flesh. When a person criticizes the teachings of prophets by pitting intellect against inspiration, he or she is engaging in inappropriate intellectualism that will ultimately lead to apostasy. If the intellective quest for truth is not guided by the Spirit of the Lord. So I'd never heard that phrase before. I thought that was interesting. Thoughts from either of you just on this? This seems to be this attempt to tamp down intellectualism.
Well, this is just a rephrasing of the old thing that I think Boyd K. Packer may have started it.
Yes.
Whenever they say intellectuals in any church talk, it's always preceded by so-called.
Yes.
So-called intellectuals. Because the only intellectuals that really exist in the Mormon church are those that are slavishly obedient to the priesthood leadership.
Yeah, I think you're right. But then again, it is BYU. It's the Lord's University, so they can do whatever they want. But it is interesting.
And what does the sign say out in front of the Lord's University, Rebecca?
Oh, yeah. What's
the
the
glory
sign?
of God is inappropriate. Is appropriate intellectualism,
yeah,
I guess.
Yes.
It's supposed to be intelligence.
Yeah.
It's
And
the
it
most
does say,
ridiculous
come here
slogan.
to learn and go forth to earn. I mean, not earn, sorry, to serve, I think.
Yes. It's a total BS slogan, and they should
It
take it down because they don't mean it, and they never did.
No, they never did. Although I feel like in the past, perhaps, I mean, when I was there, it was more, there was more intellectualism, but yeah, definitely tamped down since then. So, all right. So that's the news out of BYU. RFM, I think you have, this is a super interesting story about a doppelganger scenario.
Right. I hear Bill Reel saying something. I think he has something to add.
I didn't hear him, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say that the section there, their words fly in the face of, and then it lists a bunch of things. Also note, those words will fly in the face of future prophets as well. When prophets die, those who come after will disavow and adapt and change what was said before.
Yeah, and I don't think any of those three individuals there in that picture, the first presidency, will ever be accused of intellectualism, inappropriate or otherwise.
Well, there you have it.
Okay.
All right.
I hope that wasn't too harsh. I know that they went to school and they got probably got some good grades, but big deal. That doesn't make you an intellectual.